Hello, and welcome to my second tutorial for the Any% Glitchless Speedrun guide. Last time we looked at the beginning of the run up until Leaf Rescue, and in this tutorial we'll look beyond that, from the Snakemouth Depths all the way up until the end of Chapter 1. This fade out is where most players split or have the auto splitter split for them on Leaf Rescue. After this, we have more text where we need to talk to Leaf for the first time. Hold B for the dialogue and make your way to the first puzzle room. Traverse through this area and throw the beamering at the switch to make the platform rise. Make your way back and grab the HP Plus medal. For safety, I highly recommend putting HP Plus on V, since some of these fights can be a little scary without it. The inputs for putting it on is menu, right, A, down, A, menu. We now make it to our first actual fight against two jelly shrooms. This is also a fight where Leaf is able to attack, and we also get turn relay. We want to do 2 ice falls with Leaf in the back, which will barely kill both jelly shrooms. The menuing can be a little hard to get used to at first, but the more practice and runs you do, the more familiar you will become at menuing. After the fight, make your way into the next room with V up front. Talk to the statue on the right side of this room to get the discovery. We need 5 discoveries in Chapter 2 to trade them in for 20 berries, and this is a quick one right here. Cut this bush for a guaranteed 5 berries and throw the beamerang to grab this honey drop. The angle can be a little finicky, but with practice it can become consistent. Finally, freeze the jelly shroom and throw the beamerang to grab the crystal berry behind the mushroom. In this room, the goal is to make steps with the geyser using Leaf's overworld ability. If you freeze a geyser too high, just use Kagu's horn spike to break it and try to freeze again. Hit the switch to make the platforms move up and down to make it to the top area of this room. It is important to note that these geyser starting locations are effectively random, so you may need to react differently to where they are. Finally, hit this large switch with Leaf. The reason you want to do this with Leaf is because there's no delay with his overworld ability after pressing the button, whereas there's a bit of delay with Kagu and V. Throw the beamerang at the yellow crystal to fully restore your TP. Make sure you're fairly far back, otherwise you'll get a save prompt which will lose a bit of time. There isn't too much to note about this room, just be careful about this Anichas as it can occasionally charge at you. ready to freeze this jelly shroom here, as it more or less blocks the whole path. After that though, use Leaf to hit the crystal and make your way back to the middle room. This room with the mushrooms is pretty straightforward. These jelly shrooms can be a little scary, but with practice, avoiding them isn't too bad. After that, enter the next loading screen, which is where the first boss fight against Spuder takes place. This bit of dialogue here is the reason why Japanese text saves a little bit of time over English text overall. When you get the artifact, the text scrolls instead of all coming up at once. Because Japanese has less characters than English does letters, the text scrolls faster, thus saving a few seconds. This also applies to the end of every other chapter outside of chapters 5 and 7. The first 3 turns of Spuder consist of simply doing basic attacks with V, Kabu, and Leaf. To do these attacks fast, just double mash confirm using both the keyboard and the controller to make these attacks go extra fast. Ideally, if you hit all the action commands, you will have done 21 damage before Spuder goes into his next phase. During Phase 2, Spuder will summon both an Anichas and a Jelly Shroom. Put Leaf up front and use Kabu to do a failed attack on the Anichas to flip it. Relay to Leaf and do 2 Ice Balls to hit the Anichas and Spuder, and the Jelly Shroom and Spuder. Spuder has a 30% chance to freeze with Ice Fall, and freezes are really good to get. If you freeze on the first or third Ice Fall, it means you deal extra damage, and if you freeze on the second one, you skip Spuder's attack that turn, both of which are good. Finally, have Kabu use a Honey Drop, Ice Fall, and Tornado Toss. If you didn't get the extra damage from the freeze with Ice Fall, you will need to deal 1 more damage on turn 6, which loses a bit, but isn't a huge deal. And this is where the end of Chapter 1 lies. There's a lot that goes on here in terms of both movement tech as well as fights, so chances are that it'll take a while to nail everything. As always, there are still things we can do to optimize Snakemouth to save more time. In the first room, you can actually make this jump while skipping the platform entirely, which saves a bit of time from being able to take a slightly tighter line. Right here, if you hit this switch as you're falling in the water, you'll start the cutscene as you respawn, which saves a nice chunk of time over hitting it without this. Finally, you can skip putting in the HP plus on entirely, which is a bit risky for both Spuder and a fight in Chapter 2, but it's not needed outside of those 2 fights, so once you feel more confident in blocking, you can save a bit of time from not needing to do this extra equip. In total, these optimizations add up to save almost 7 seconds total. Something to note about the Jelly Shroom fight is that it has a random chance to drop a 5 berry. It's pretty unlikely, and it has a chance to drop other things too, but those usually aren't worth its grab unless it's the 5 drop. In the room immediately after the Jelly Shrooms, you can make a very early water drop cycle with clean enough movement. This cycle is rather tricky to nail as there isn't much room for leeway, but saves almost 3 seconds if done well. In this room, you can freeze this geyser at a specific height before hitting the switch to make it onto the left platform immediately. You want the geyser's height to be at the bottom of the dark region on the wall. In this example, it saves 2 seconds, but if the geyser goes to the right spot quicker, you can save up to 5 seconds with this. In this room, you can do this ability jump here to hit the switch early to make it rotate sooner, thus saving time. This can be hard, especially if the Anichas is nearby. You can hit the switch again before it fully rotates to save a bit more time. In total, these small optimizations save a little over a second. Finally, in this last room, you can make this jump onto the lower mushroom while skipping the one farther up to save a bit more time by taking a more direct line. And that just about wraps things up. If you have any additional questions, or feel like I missed something important out, be sure to leave them in the comments below, or join the Bug Fables speedrunning Discord, which I'll link in the description. If you liked the tutorial and want to see more, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you don't want to miss when the next one comes out. If you want to see full game runs of Bug Fables, be sure to follow me on Twitch. I stream almost every day, and am currently focusing on trying to lower the Glitchless world record while having some memorable moments along the way. A link to my Twitch channel will be in the description. That being said though, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.